Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Akakadash. Double honors and salutations to the elders and apostles of Group and Stone, to the Akim and Akwaf, throughout the four corners of the earth, holding on in sincerity and in truth to the gospel of Order Mashak Yahweh in these days and times. Ramnashi DC Camp, short lesson for the hopeful elect. So this wave of the elites pushing for the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, is just the tip of the iceberg that they want to come to fruition. It's so ingrained in their goal. It's one of the cornerstones of their NWO, the New World Order agenda. All right, so they have to push it through, and they're going to test the waters, to see who's who, that's going to be on board, and who's going to be in opposition, and all that stuff. And they're still going to have the so-called double agents, playing with the minds of the people, and those are going to have buyer's remorse. All right, they're going to have the so-called Judas Iscariot effect, So it's just what it is, So we got the state of South Dakota. The governor vetoed the agenda of including CBDC as a form of money, as money. So it says to the governor, South Dakota passes 2 bills to take steps against the CBDC, all right, against the central bank digital currency. So, you could look up the bill that was introduced before this, So that was introduced before these 2 bills, attempting to push the agenda of CBDC, into the mind frame of the people, so the people could adopt it. But what do you think is going to happen? It's going to be a contention. All right. So it said. So this is so this article was written a few days ago, February 21st. It says today, the South Dakota Senate gave final approval to the second of 2 bills to reject CBDCs, or central bank digital currency, removing it from the definition of money in the state and banning the state from accepting it as payment. All right. So for them to do this is just another situation that they're trying to avoid. But at the end of the day, man, if Congress goes along with updating the law to say, CBDC can now be accepted as money, then that's going to cause the states to be in a frenzy. It's going to further cause tensions, and that's exactly what happens. When things are not really clear, but there is no legislation. The elite are going to go to Congress and tell them, all right, put this legislation in place. So that's exactly what they're going to have to do, because they control the corridors of power, and there's nothing much the states can do, because the states are basically a front for the elites, So whosoever, tries to oppose them, is just going to have an uphill battle, because the Lord has put so much power in the hands of these elites that these so-called governors, man, each time they get that phone call, from a private number, they're shaking their boots. So those that want to be in defiance, they know what the cost is, and it's just the price, they understand that, the big picture is much more dysfunctional than what they're seeing now. So you can imagine, the power, to keep the border open and let all these migrants flow in. It's causing a lot of tension between the people and their governments, So now they know that the so-called, governors of Texas and California, they're just front men to pretend as if, they're against, this situation, that the people have concerns about. So it's just, the enemy playing both sides of the coin. One so-called Republican, one so-called Democrat, So they always like to pick issues that they can use to manipulate the people. That's why people are upset about the way California is going, and people see the tricks of the governments, how they give money to these corporations to bus these migrants from one location to the other, and then you still have contracts that's given to these companies that shelters them. So it's just it's a big old scheme, to build up the critical mass, to crush the will of the people. January 6th is just the tip of the iceberg, but at the end of the day, they have to create some type of problems. And you see that situation in Chicago, you see it in New York. So now folks that like to laugh at the man of the Lord, now they begin to understand that it's about time, they pay attention. But at the end of the day, man, the Lord decides. So get back to the point, so it says Representative Mike Stevens and the bipartisan coalition of co-sponsors introduced House Bill 1163 and House Bill 1161 on January 25. All right, so it says HB 1163 would expressly exclude CBDC from the definition of money in South Dakota. All right, so it shows you that the reason why they're doing this is because they have lobbyists, courting these legislators to champion the cause of CBDCs, and they know that something sounds fishy, and at the end of the day, man, it's a contention that the people have to deal with, all right? So it says in HB 1161 will prohibit state agencies from accepting CBDC as a form of payment, all right? So that's just a minor roadblock, man, in this agenda for the elites. So if the state government don't want to accept CBDC as a form of payment, that means the private corporations are going to team up with so-called Federal Reserve and Treasury to make CBDCs attractive. But folks that are going to fall into the trap will fall into it, and those that don't want to go along, we avoid at all costs. But how long can they avoid it? How long can they avoid the problems? When you have the truckers, that depend on electronic payments. You have folks that all these types of jobs, teachers, lawyers, doctors that depend on electronic systems for payments. Just imagine when those companies that process payments get swallowed up by these big companies. Just like when you watch the news, you talk about Capital One putting in an offer to buy up Discover. So just imagine when these payment processing companies get gobbled up by these big companies, and they start promoting the attractiveness of CBDC to make it cheaper, and all that stuff. So who knows, man? Who knows what they're gonna do to make it attractive to the people, offering all types of discounts, whatever it is. If you can't do it through legislation, they do it through their private corporations. And that's something you see. Just like when you're paying a traffic ticket online, they always like to use third-party vendors. If you use your credit card, they're going to charge you a fee. But if you use your checking account, you're not going to get any fees assessed to the final payment. So it just shows you, man, that at the end of the day, man, it's the government that's in control with these private companies. So you just have to be aware of what you are exposing yourself to, and what to be watching out for. So let me not say too much, man, because reading the articles easy, but then when the push comes to shove during the time of your trial, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna be able to stand when majority of the people are screaming for relief? When folks cannot pay their children's medical bills because of some glitch with some system, they're gonna start looking for other options. So what if that other option is CBDC? When all these small companies start shutting off all these other digital payments, and they say they're switching over to CBDC because it's more secure. Yeah, a lot of folks are gonna just fall in, But at the end of the day, man, don't be surprised that a lot of folks are gonna just give up and just go along and take the MOTB. So that's just what it is, man. So when they force a lot of folks to go along with CBDC, man, whether the company just decided to just convert everybody over to CBDC without the customer's consent, then what do? You're not the one that switched over. The company switched everybody's system over. Everybody's account over to CBDC. So what do? What do? Yeah, so it shouldn't be a major problem for you if you're trusting the Lord. So I get Psalms chapter 62, verse 10. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. All right. So we're living in a time of where the wealth of a lot of people are gonna increase, man. When you go online, man, folks are making funds hand over fist in the markets. All right, the market is just pushing up to greater highs. So it doesn't matter if the market goes up or goes down. Folks make money, and make some chump change that way too. You could make more. But it's just that end of the day, man, you have to know your limits when it comes to your concerns about finances, man. You don't let the serpent's philosophy rule over your soul. There's a limit to what you can accept, all right? And, your tolerance has to be according to the will of the Lord. So Psalm 62 and 10 tells you, trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. So do not mislead your people, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans shouldn't be misleading others, their own people, into going along with the agenda just because they have no other option and just cave in to unrighteousness. The law doesn't say you should cave into unrighteousness. It says you need to have a tolerance, a limit to what you can deal with. And when it reaches that limit, when that limit is getting breached, just trust in the Lord, man. We're not in our own society. We're not owners of America. We're still in captivity. Yeah, so you just have to know exactly what you're willing to put up with. You should know how far you're willing to go. You should always set a limit, just like the scripture talks about setting a guard over thy mouth. Basically setting a mental, a spiritual boundary that you're not willing to go over. And that's exactly what this scripture is about. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, do not set your hearts upon them. All right, do not get attached to your gains in this, your financial gains, your wealth in this society. During this dispensation of times, a lot of people's riches will become a trap. So you should learn to walk away, man, at a certain time, so you do not get eviscerated by your greed and by your thirst for riches, man. We all have to learn that lesson. All right. So All right, so it says defining money under the South Dakota Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC. Money means a medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. All right, so you know what that means, right? So the federal government has to step in and see what they're going to do. Are they going to change the definition of money to, include CBDC and all that stuff? You know, since they're already using digital transfer of money between the banks and all that stuff. You know, so it says the term includes a monetary unit of an account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement between two or more countries. All right. So the world is, on the fast track towards centralization of the issuance of digital money. That's why they're pushing hard for this Bitcoin ETFs. They have to find a way to make digital money much more attractive. So it says in HB 1163, all right, we'll add the term is not intended and cannot be construed to create or adopt a central bank digital currency to that definition. Yeah, so that's the issue. So if the federal government decides to, if Congress decides to write a legislation to push CBDC, what are the states gonna do? And the private corporation, these big banks are also on board. Visa, Mastercard, all that stuff, American Express. Your three major credit card, companies. What do you think? The states are gonna do. These states have they have a business credit card. They have accounts with these credit card companies. So what are these states gonna do when the private corporations decide to switch over to CBDC to be in so-called compliance with the federal government? If the state government doesn't want to comply, the the corporations are going to comply because they're on board. It's their agenda. You know, so when the private corporations decide to switch over to CBDCs, what choice does the government have? The so-called states have. So that's how jacked up the situation is. So it's just what you call, man. It's a trap. The states are basically trapped, man. The states are basically trapped. Just like the private companies were pushing the agenda for the limitations of cash. They're arguing against it, promoting programs against using of cash and all that stuff. You see it in the adverts and all that stuff. So what do you do when the private corporations decide to step up and back up the agenda of the elites with the government? What you call a private public partnership. When they gang up together against the state, that's it. That's the power. That's what you call a monopoly. Let me just say, just call it fascism. The corporate powers control both the private corporations and the state. So, in fact, the country, just keep it that way. So it's basically a capture. So, Jeremiah chapter 4, it's like a chapter 9. Jeremiah chapter 9, verses 4 and 5 says, take ye heed, everyone of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. So that's what this legislation exploits. It exploits the psyche of the people. There's so much deception when it comes into politics. When folks don't read the legislation and they just vote for it because because of hearsay. That's what ends up being the result, man. More problems. That's what it is, man. So it's just the serpent's way of consolidating his powers. So I read Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 4 again. Take ye heed, everyone, of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother, for every brother will utterly supplant, and every neighbor will walk with slanders. All right. So you're gonna have a lot of jakes in all these government positions, man. They're just gonna switch over with the elites, man. They're gonna go along with the big banks to mislead the people. So a lot of protests. You're gonna see a lot of protests in the streets. People going to all these council meetings to express their concerns, and all this state legislature picketing and all that stuff. And then you're gonna have riots in the streets, because of folks are not pleased with the way they are being governed. The civil servant has taken the reins, taken on the responsibilities of being a master. All right. And then Jeremiah 9:5 says, and they will deceive every one of his neighbor. I will not speak the truth. They have taught their tongue to speak lies and err and weary themselves to commit iniquity. So the love of money, man, it's the root of all evil. And you just have to understand it's the Lord that's setting these things up, to cause a breakdown of society. And basically he's paving the way for the salvation of his elect, of the 12th tribe of Israel, right? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So this is what the Lord has allowed to happen. He has to pave a way for Esau to institute his CBDC agenda, and the Lord has to cause havoc. The Lord has to separate, the wolves in sheep clothing from the sheep, right? And that's just how the Lord does his work. He has to allow this chaos to happen so there can be a separation. Just like during the harvest time, when you get the wheat out of the field, you have to smash it against a hard surface. So that's why all this chaos has to happen. This chaos happens because the Lord has to create a separation. So Job chapter 12 verse 16 says, with him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. All right. So the Lord has already put these players, these actors in place to mislead the people. That's why, the elect cannot afford to dwell in darkness. All right. And then Job 12 and 17 says, he leadeth counselors away spoiled, and he maketh the judges fools. All right. So your so-called elected leaders, mayors, governors, councilors, aldermen, and all that stuff, prosecutors and judges and DAs, whatever they call themselves, they all playing the part of fools, before the Lord, because the Lord has already, deemed them to be his puppets. So they have to be used in a way to make conditions difficult. Folks complain about all these district attorneys allowing criminals to roam free and all that stuff. It's just the will of the Lord, so there can be a separation, for our people to wake up. When times are comfortable, our people just want to be asleep. But when times are hard, the Lord, sharpen up the minds of the elect. And that's just what it is, okay? So, so we go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 21. What does it say? It says this: to have respect of persons is not good. And that's why a lot of bad legislation gets passed. All right, because the so-called elected officials have already taken they've taken the bag. All right. They've cut the deal, to be on the payroll of the super elites. What has to be on the payroll of this coal mining, energy companies and all that stuff, oil corporations, lobbyists and all that stuff is just what happens, Proverbs chapter 28 verse 21, to have respect of persons is not good. So that's why the Lord warned his servants against judging unrighteous judgment, judging according to appearance, judging according to the abundance of a rich person, and decide against the poor. For a piece of bread, that man will transgress. So you can imagine, man, when folks are oppressed, just sit back and watch the results, man. That's how you study human conditioning. Folks will run away from their responsibility and become a puppet, to the highest bidder against their own soul. So that's one of the reasons Babylon is going to have a lot of turmoil, because there's so much inconsistencies, in what the people say and what what they're gonna get in return. They're hoping for the best, but the worst always happen. It's like they say, one step forward and 10 steps backward. Yeah. So and now they begin to see who the puppets are, who the folks are that are misleading them. So it doesn't matter how many words this so-called officials like to push out there to mislead the people, trying to appease and manage to damage control on behalf of the elite. It doesn't change anything. The folks, getting information by the truckload, so they know exactly what's going on, and that's why they're protesting. Just like these truckers, man, saying they don't like the way things are going up in New York, so they want to boycott by not picking up any load going to New York and coming from and going out of New York. So it's just a mess that is going to end up turning into, man. They always say frustration always leads to anger, and then from anger it becomes super angry, and then it becomes a violent confrontation, destruction of property, and then the loss of life. Violence, man. That's the end result is violence and death. All right. So you just got to be wary of folks, man, that always like to push an agenda to rally the people around them or behind all these social causes. All right. The men of the Lord are not about social causes. They're about the cause of righteousness. All right. That's the way the Lord has set things up. So Esau is upset. He has to create more calamities. That's why he's pushing the CBDC. He wants more control over the people. So the other states, all right. So you see the vote 44 to 21. We don't really understand, what the opposition against this bill is. But when you understand, when you get access to the debates, the transcripts, then you know exactly what the problem is. So it also says that similar legislation excluding CBDC from the definition of money has already been signed as law in Indiana and Florida. All right. So it doesn't really change anything because the private corporations can always switch people over, to CBDC against the will of the states. And if the states have a problem, now they got to take it up to the Supreme Court. So you can imagine if the state says they're going to ban these credit card companies from doing business in their state, do you know how much turmoil it's going to create for the businesses and the citizens, the people of those states? So this just shows you how the serpent operates, man. Once he gets in the door, man, that's it. He's not leaving. That's why the Lord of Yahushua has to return and burn the whole place down, man. The whole place is infested with serpents, all right? So it's only a matter of time the Lord gets that done. So it says, neither the state nor any of its agencies or subdivisions may accept a CBDC, all right, digital currency, whether foreign or domestic, as payment for taxes, fees, tuition, all right, admission, the settlement of any account, or death, or any other purpose. So that's just the situation. So that's what it is. When folks do not have access to cash, all they have is CBDC. What do you think is going to happen? That's an extra headache, especially when the banks are closing down their branches. So it just shows you, man. When the bank decides to buy, a credit card the bank decides to buy a credit card company, and it's still shutting down branches across the country. It just shows you, what's going on. If you have the money to buy a credit card company, what's the use shutting down a banking branch? So that's just what happens. It shows you that something else is going on. The actions and the plans, you know, are questionable. So it says the proposed law will also require a person engaging in the purchase of any sale of good, right? Engaging in the purchase or sale of any goods or services or trading in financial products in South Dakota to accept any other form. All right. To accept any form of legal tender along with CBDC if they choose to take CBDC. So that's just the issue, man. So if you want to do business with the government, you can't be using CBDC. But when it comes to privacy, between citizens and all that stuff, they can choose CBDC. All right. So the proposed law will also require a person engaging in the purchase of or sale of any goods or services or trading in financial products in South Dakota to accept another form of legal tender along with CBDC if they choose to take CBDC. All right. So that's one thing. So if you're going to do business with the government is not going to allow CBDC, but they want the people to have the option of accepting it. So it just shows you how funny and suspicious this agenda is. So yeah, it's just how it is. Push the people further along. So those that oppose this situation, see exactly that it's all about enslaving the people to make it so possible. Open up a door for the people to walk in towards their own demise. And that's how it is, man. People making progress, all that stuff. They're making a lot of money. Their business is flourishing because they're also accepting CBDC and other forms of payment. But when the system comes crumbling down under the heavy hand of tyranny, then the folks are gonna be left holding the bag. So that's just what it is, man. So that's how tricky the situation is. So it also says this is similar to an Alabama law passed in 2023 legislative session. Yeah, so it just happens, man. This is how it works. The government doesn't want to accept it as payment for government operations, but they rather have individuals and businesses have it as an option. So now you know exactly how the legislation works. So it's just what it is, man. Let the people decide. So those that fall, prey to their own demise, it's just what it is. So that's how terrible things can get. All right. So just to skip this paragraph, no, let me just read it real quick. So it says, as per HB 1161 and 1163 will create impediments to the implementation of CBDC in South Dakota. What type of impediment? It says a refusal to cooperate with officers of the union. Unions are not government organizations, all right? Along with the embarrassments created by legislative devices would oppose in any state difficulties not to be despised. Yeah, so it doesn't really change anything, man. What impediment is it when they're making it optional? Not even say optional. They open up the door for the people to accept it as payment, but the government does not accept it as payment. So who's benefiting from the situation and who's losing? Who's been deceived? The deceived and the deceiver the Lord's. So, hey, at the end of the day, man, as long as you do not fall, for the wiles of the enemy during the hour of Jacob's trouble, you just gotta be, prayerful till then. In fact, beyond then. So, how such legislation will play out in practice against the CBDC, should the federal government attempt to implement one, is unknown. So, there's nothing much the federal government can do at this level until push comes to shove, because the states are already doing the will of the federal government. All right. So that's just what it is, man. They say they're not gonna accept it as payment for government services and all that stuff, but they allow people, private entities, to have it as an option as payment, for exchange of goods and services. All right, and then you're still gonna get taxed. You're still gonna get taxed on it. So that means you're gonna get taxed for every CBDC transaction that you engaged in. So, is the state losing? No, they just don't want to accept the CBDC. So what are you gonna do? You have to convert it over to something else. Now, who knows what that something else might be until they decide to just cave in and accept CBDC. So that's how deceptive and mind-bending these legislations can be. So I get another precept. It's going to be from the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16. I'm going to read verse 69 and 70. It says, and they that consent unto them shall be had in derision, and reproach, and in reproach, and trodden on their foot. All right. So folks that go along with this system and believe totally in it, they're gonna figure out that the serpent, man, the dragon, has always been lurking in the shadows, to have dominion over the people, complete dominion, and a lot of folks are going to lose their lives because of their blind trust in the serpent. All right. And then verse 70 says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So our people, the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, that do not agree with the oppression, they're going to be attacked. They expect the attack against our people. So it's just a matter of time. It becomes really, really, really evident. Because whether it's through the introduction of drugs, the forcing of all these gender bender policies and legislation, and all these abortion policies, it's just one burden after the other. Gentrification, redlining, all that stuff, discrimination. It's just the purpose of the serpent that we have to be aware of. All right. So there's enough information out there. There's enough scriptures in the Bible that warns our people what to look out for, and it's only a matter of time that the word of the Lord, we hit them smack in the face, and then they have no other option but to accept that the word of the Lord has been always true and available to them. All right. So so now we read the next paragraph. It says, opponents of the legislation generally take the position that states can do anything to stop a CBDC, since, according to their view, under the Supremacy Clause, any federal law on this point will automatically override state law. All right. And that's what happens when the federal government don't want to engage in the debate. They pass it down to the states. When they need a break from deceiving the people, they pass it on to their bodies in the states to play the game for them. And they get paid, Don't think these politicians are deceiving the people for free. That's what they're getting paid for, man. That's what they get these lucrative deals, to hook themselves up to the system. They hook themselves up to the faucets of the finances. So that's how messed up it is. So whether they talk about federal will overrule the state, that's not really the issue, man. The corporations control the federal government, and by proxy, they also control the states. So what else can the people have as a recourse? So there's nothing else. And then look at California. Look at California. So it's what it is, man. It's not about letting the people decide. It's about pushing the people in a direction. The elites want them to be. Telling the people what to do and how to do it and when to do it. That's what they want with CBDC. They want total control, and that's how desperate the elites are. Okay, and now look at this. A similar scenario played out in response to the Real ID Act of 2005. All right, I remember when they were pushing that stuff, man. All of a sudden, it just kept quiet about it. But now the states are going along with Real ID. All right, so you cannot board a airplane, or access a government building without having a Real ID. So that's your driver's license. It has to be upgraded. So when I got my license upgraded last year, it's a Real ID. So it's just what it is. When your license expires and the only option they're offering you is a Real ID, what can you do? So you just have to know your limits. As long as you're not taking the MOTB, the mark of the beast, you'll be fine. You trust in the Lord that Mashaki Awashai by Shuman Kakadash, you're in good hands, all right? So it says, why not? Because a significant number of states decided not to participate, drug their feet, or in some cases simply provide residents with a choice to opt out. Choice to opt out or choice to opt in, it doesn't make a difference. As long as that does, a righteous man will not do such a thing to make it possible for his people to opt into a system or opt out into a system. How about you shut it out, shut it down? Getting in, that's about it. End of discussion. Federal officials have confirmed that state-level roadblocks to implementation are the primary reason for the continuing delays, but then they open the door for the people to accept it. So when you have the people going along with it, it's just like breadcrumbs and ants. When you see your neighbor, moving forward, with his business, and you're still stuck because of you don't want to go along with CBDC. It becomes painful. That's why you gotta trust in the Lord, man. We're not here in Babylon to excel and succeed in all these economic avenues. Hey, just pray that you can get your daily bread, and be prayerful, man. That the Lord gives you the courage to stand against the wiles of the devil. So it says that passage of either bill will put limits on the use of CBDC in the state. Okay, so that's for the state-run operations. Okay, so you can imagine all that agenda that you got to deal with. Okay, so yeah, that's as far I would like to read this precepts. Well, I'm gonna say this precepts, man. This prescribed agenda of Esau, man. So I go to another scripture. It's from the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, and verse 20. It's like verse 12. Proverbs 14 and 12. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. All right. Proverbs 14 and 12, there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. So just imagine when folks think they're making the right choices and they're progressing and succeeding, and only to figure out that they just walk themselves into a trap door. You know, the elect knows a trap door, but there's a limit to the number of steps they're going to take. So that's the reason why the Lord wants us to be circumspect and to be aware of the wiles of the devil, man. It's just not, it's not something to ignore. And the famous precept that I like to always, I like to read, Proverbs chapter 22, verse 3, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. All right. So you see that when you read a whole article, when you go online and search South Dakota, Indiana, or Florida and CBDC, end of the day, man, whose life is at stake is the mind of the people. It's not the government, you know. So that's how serious people should take these attempts, So Proverbs chapter 22, verse 3, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. So you got to equip yourself with the knowledge of salvation so you do not get condemned with the dead, right? But the simple pass on and are punished. So that's how mischievous the plans of Esau are, man. Yeah, it's like, this lesson's taking a little longer than I expected, but hey, when so much is on your mind, you just have to learn to deal with it, man. Sometimes you don't want to cut your speech short, but it's important, you just speak the word of the Lord, man. It's something you cannot resist, you have to do. That's what the Lord instructs you to do. It's a struggle against the flesh, all right? So Isaiah 52 and 3 says, for thus saith the Lord, ye have sold yourselves for naught, and ye shall be redeemed without money. All right. So when our people became servants of Esau, the Lord understood that what we get in return for Esau's system is nothing. It's basically worthless garbage. The loss of identity, the corruption of our household, the degradation of our families, and all that stuff is nothing compared to what we put into the system. When we build the system up, what do we get in return? Just tons of heartache, destruction, policies that contributes to the implosion of our lives, That's why there's so many Jakes are homeless, man. The majority of the homeless population is Jake. All right, even in the jail system is Jake. All right, they're basically raw materials for Esau to stay rich and get richer. All right. And then verse 4 says, for thus said the Lord Yahweh, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. All right. So it shows you that the oppression of our people is very, very dear to the Lord. And he knows exactly the price, we've attached to our lives. And he's going to make amends to that situation, man. All right. Then verse 5 says, now therefore, what have I here, said the Lord, that my people is taken away for naught. They that rule over them make them to howl. That's why Jake is always protesting and yelling, on the airwaves, all these public radio stations, and on the streets protesting. Even when they have a so-called podcast and all these selfie videos on TikTok, Jake is just upset and angry, all right? And my name is continually every day. My name continually every day is blasphemed, all right? So that's just something the Lord has a situation to address. You know, he's he's upset. You know, dealing with blasphemy and then the ridicule of his people, the demise of his people. So he has to make correction. Then verse 6 says, therefore my people shall know my name. So the name of the Lord is very, very important, you know. So the Lord knows that his name is being blasphemed. Therefore, he's going to make our people remember his name. Therefore, my people shall know my name. Therefore, they shall know in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I. So this is the power that we've been expecting to be resurrected out of you know out of the darkness into the light, you know, so the minds of our people can be uplifted. Yeah, so it's just a situation we have to be aware of, man. When you fear the Lord, you know, you understand that it's something you have to prepare yourself for, man. You don't want to get lost in the maze of distraction. All right, so it says CBDC. All right, digital currencies can exist as virtual banknotes or coins held in a digital wallet on your programmable computer or smartphone. All right, that's why scammers want to know what type of digital wallet you're using. You know, you hear about people losing access to their funds in banks because someone was able to get the bank to release the funds under dubious reasons. The difference between a central bank digital currency and peer-to-peer electronic cash, such as Bitcoin, is that the value of the digital currency is backed and controlled by the government, just like the fiat currency. So the government wants folks to be using digital payments. That means they can track it, they can do whatever they want with it. And it's just what it is, man. The government can always block the transfer of funds from one account to another. That's just what it is, you know. So it's just how simple it is, man. You know, it's just how simple. So instead of using the banks, you can use a wallet. You know, so the bank is basically a wallet, but without the interest and lending. You know, when you compare that to people, you know, so it's just what it is. Otherwise, it's just another situation that they want. They don't want folks to have the same powers as banks, so that's why they have to find a way to control the situation. They have to massage it in such a way that they still in power and they have more jurisdiction over the people. So it says that government issued digital currencies are sold on the promise of providing a safe, convenient, and more secure alternative to physical cash. Yeah, so you see that, you know, all this break-ins and all that stuff, carjackings and all that, you know. So what do you think? Folks that travel overseas and they get drugged and robbed, whatever the case is, you know, identity theft, you know, data breaches and all these data companies. It happens, man. You know, it happens. You know, man, they have to figure out how they can further, you know, push this CBDC. There's nothing wrong with having a secure account, but it's just that the reason why the elites want to have power over the people is because they want the birthright back, you know. So they have to create an environment where the dangerous criminals are going to abuse the system, and then they're going to jump in there as Mr. I want to fix it, okay? So we are also told it will help stop dangerous criminals who like the intractability of cash. Yeah, so they don't want folks, you know, to be dependent on cash as much as they used to, and then that criminals will not be able to take advantage of cash. You know, all the shitloads of cash that flows outside of the country because of all these drug deals and all that stuff that fuels the drug economy. Now it shows you that ESOS already accomplished a certain level of goals, all right, and his agenda, and then I guess it's time for him to tell the cartels that it's over, man. You know, there'll be no more need for your cocaine, your fentanyl. Once it has control over the CBDC, once cash is no longer available, that's about it. That's about it. So it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. Yeah, so it's gonna be chaotic. So that's just what it is. So, the elites want power. They want power. They see the clock is ticking. So it says, but there's a darker side, the promise of control. So control is what a lot of folks are realizing, and they do not want, tyrants to be in control of their funds, just like what Bank of America did to folks that were in the area of January 6th, So that's just what it is, So that's just the point of this short lesson. It's going to be a bitter experience for a lot of people, but this has to happen. Scripture talks about offenses must come, all right, but woe unto him by whom the offenses come by, all right. So one more precept, just wrap it up. This is the book of John, chapter 14. I'm going to read verse 27. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you, not as the world give it. All right. So when they're promising security to our people, it's not really going to be type of security that they're hoping for. It's going to be security to dominate their lives and turn them into puppets times 10. So Yahushua is telling you, his peace he lives with us. All right. His peace I give unto you. All right. If I read it properly, John 14:27, peace I live with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world give it. So, yeah, the peace of this world is based on deception, and it can be altered at any point in time at the whim, of the elite's mind and all that stuff. All right. And then it says, not as the world give it, give I unto you. So that's a huge comparison between the Lord's plan and the world's plan. The Lord's plan and the world's plan, the plan of Yahweh Shai Bashim Kadash are totally different from what the world, the world of the elite is all about. The conglomerate of Edom and his minions, right? So Yahushua says, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. All right. So don't be afraid, man, when the so-called government is pushing hard against the people. Even this paragraph says, at the root of the move toward government digital currency is the war on cash. The war on cash, all right? The elimination of cash creates the potential for the government to track and even control consumer spending. Consumer spending is also linked to the, speech. All right, it's also linked, to constitutional rights. So you can imagine, man, when they don't like what you do, they just flag your account as suspicious activity, freeze your just like the banks put a hold on your account. You can't withdraw a certain amount without proper authorization. So that's just what it is. That's just the headache that folks have to deal with. So that's the point there, Akim. So the legislation they pushed makes it possible for folks to accept CBDC as a form of payment, but the government doesn't want to accept it as a form of payment. That means you have to convert it over to something else. So it just shows you how manipulative this system is, man. You don't want to get caught up in this web of deception. You just got to pray that the Lord protects your mind from following blindly, man. So just be circumspect, man. That's why, as children of light, you have to use the light to see in the world filled with darkness. So that was the point that I came at Baratazar. You've been edified by Hashem Shai, by Hashem Kakadash, with the approval of Yahweh. Shalom.